This presentation is on this perpetual issue of clarity in philosophy. So, how speedily our eyes can be open to the problem of clarity is somewhat a function of whether we're willing to face up to the anthropology department. So, like, I just saw this Babbitt Babbage on a popular stage defending continental philosophy against analytic philosophy, and this is often this is an old sort of go-to is to put up continental philosophy as the sort of birthday party hanging stuffed animal to be beaten up by the blindfolded analytic philosophers on the point of being unintelligible or using too much jargon, so-called, which is, after all, just a sort of nasty way to say a technical term, which anyone that has sort of any normal sense, it seems to me, wouldn't criticize somebody for using a technical term. But seemingly almost there's a large swath of people that are don't have an immediate sense of what a technical term is. So it raises all these problems of, like, is it just that so long as you had people that had the sense of the discipline, you're okay, but once you come into contact with the heathens, then you're in trouble, then you don't know what to do. And then the question is sort of like, is it always this thing about Socrates saying, listen, I'm your friend, to the people in the cave, sort of like, I can explain everything I'm saying, just follow me, just follow my path in the Logos. So just come to the mouth of the Logos, just come to my tram, to language, and you'll follow me, and then you'll see what I'm saying, and then you will see that I am a friend of the people, I, Socrates. So that, for instance, on the point of that, the common people think, as everyone does, in a certain sense, that it hurts to be stabbed, let's say, or it's like it's better not to be stabbed. But then from Socrates says, but so Socrates, without sort of making a division, without saying, oh, but from a spiritual point of view, it's better to be stabbed than to be the one that's tainted with this guilt of the stabbing or something like that. Socrates tries to make this statement directly in the Gorgias, for instance. But in any case, he could be I think this argument, if laid out well, it could be understood in some way. But the more we look into it, the more we become perplexed, as they say. That's perplexed can be used in both, sort of in a double way too, right? It's like Maimonides is translated to say, "There's the guide to the perplexed," which actually is sort of it's a very elusive thing, because Maimonides is so associated with a rationalizing movement within Judaism, but at the same time, he's the one who does a sort of esoteric reading of the rabbinical text and of the Mishnah Torah. And then it's sort of like, is he saying this is the guide to the perplexed, meaning to the people that are only philosophic and therefore don't get these problems because they haven't done like what Thomas did and said we start with this philosophic clarity, but then we realize that at a certain point it becomes unclear. And then Glaube or faith is the path that Thomas subscribes to, but that, and then there's mysticism too, in the time of Maimonides too. So it's like guide to the perplexed. Oh, it's a guide to the people that haven't yet reached this level. But then, what of the question of continental philosophy as against analytic philosophy? So, I guess the main justification for this, or what I'm saying, is simply this: it's really, the contest should be clarified as follows. One, the real question is, what is clarity, and why should we care about sort of having faith about that we understand what clarity is? Why can't we just sometimes things swerve or whatever, but most of the time we don't care what clarity means. But why do we care what clarity means? This is the whole question of culture. So this is the anthropologist's problem. So if you are sort of in a leftist camp, then you'll have already, like David Graeber, for instance, that's a perfect example, progressive leftists, have totally embraced the difference version. And so much so that one even says that there's different versions of what counts as clarity, is, as it were, the only clear thing. And then this has the practical meaning that people like Fraser with his golden bow are regarded as monstrous, as almost like as bad as Trump, basically, or even worse, slightly, because they're more intelligent, and then they should have been expected not to fall prey to such. It's sort of like the thing about the Nazis being especially sinister because they're cultured, because they're intelligent. Fraser is kind of like that with amongst sort of progressive leftists in the anthropology department, but everybody in the anthropology department takes this view. Absolutely, there's nobody that doesn't accept something like a post-Boas, post-Malachowski difference rather than hierarchy's view of culture. There's nobody that, even Dugan totally predicates everything he does on this view. So the questions we're seeing haven't caught up with the actual situation. There's this constant claim, the canons of clarity. We must talk about the canons of clarity. And then instead of saying, but here's your enemy, the anthropology department in every university, they keep saying, but here's your enemy, the people that are obfuscating our capability of understanding complex matters through using technical terms. Such as the continental, such as Jacques Derrida or whatever, such as Avital, Renaud, etc. And then you get sometimes stupid defenses of this, or I guess the great majority of them are stupid, but the proper defense is to say, is there a cogent reason why clarity should be held up on trial, as it were? And the cogent reason would just point to the anthropology department and what's been discovered in the last several hundred years. Anthropology, which in fact used to be psychology, and which again shows the radicality of the principles on which these difficulties are based, and that who today would confuse psychology and anthropology, and what even is psychology, because psychology was still an Immanuel concept, still around the year 1800, still in the time of Napoleon or so, still at the time of the French Revolution. Psychology was still understood in this sense of Plato as that there's different kinds of lives. There's because the psyche, or psyche in Latin, soul, is, remember Aristotle understood this as synonymous with the life of a living being. So then really the question of psychology in Plato is this question, like, do they live this Persian life of the gluttons and the Xerxeses, or do they live this Alcibiades life of sort of thumos, or do they live in the life of Dugin or of Heidegger, the logos psyche, as it were, logos psyche, logos life, logos anthropology. But then there gets to be this problem where every anthropology which is presented as, or anthropology comes from the word anthropos, which is what Socrates is famous saying when you look at it in the original. What he says is a life without an investigation is anthropos, sort of in the way we use the word amoral or whatever. It's anthropos, it's not anthropos. And anthropology is supposed to study anthropos, and Socrates' version is the logos. Or I don't know, I guess we take it that Socrates is, through Plato, is propounding the philosophic life. Maybe he's not. That's a long story. It's like you say Strauss is so simple, but then you look at anything he wrote and it's just absolutely enigmatic and unclear. And even the best, most thoroughgoing students of most of Strauss is in English anyway, so if you're an English speaker, you don't have to have any special credentials in a way, but nonetheless, you can never understand it because it's so much of the way he thinks is totally Prussian, is totally, I call it Prussian, but is whatever, it's totally this pre-World War I sort of mentality of the German-speaking countries, especially the Protestant German-speaking countries. In Switzerland, I think you get different things because you have some Catholics influence in some of the German areas too. And maybe in the South, when you're more in Bavaria or whatever, maybe you have different influences. But I think of the more Lutheran-influenced part of the German-speaking world, which went towards Bildung, which went absolutely towards Bildung, Wilhelm Meister's apprenticeship and so on. Then you see, as it were, Strauss might say, you scratch the surface of the English Strauss that has done this kara or turn from the way European thinks. The way he puts it is the way a European thinks to the way an American thinks. And then, isn't there in Alice Strauss's writings something of the way a European thinks underneath this veneer of a lot of language he gets from Perry Mason novels and other things that he thinks connects him to the sort of direct Socratic level of American usage, which is to say, like the man in the street version of American usage, hard-boiled novels, detective novels, and other things. So simplicity is already very confused just for anybody that actually pays attention or studies this type of stuff. But then I think one's tendency to try to explain it out of that way always seems more or less like some form of strange individualism, or almost like Hermann Hesse direction or something. And then it's not really that cogent on the whole. I think the real way to treat with this it's like this constant imbecile question that keeps being raised, but it's somehow never dispositively disposed of in a way that really satisfies anyone. This constant claim of these people aren't clear enough, and then with all the with this ambiguity about whether we're dealing with the ordinary sort of tricks and Pam Bondi's and the ordinary type of shifting the attention games of Trump and so on, or whether we're actually dealing with somebody who diligently having done Alstein, Anders, Zetzinger, face up to these questions, still says, no, we don't really understand this, and something's wrong with it, and it's a Sokol affair thing, or whatever that thing was called. And yeah, to some, how much is this actually a legitimate view? Some people, on the basis of what experience they have, are propounding, and then whether it needs to be, as it were, decomposed honestly, or whether it's part of just a slew of, as it were, politics as business as usual, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, again, yeah, see how sort of cathected all this is? Because it's so much part of the too close and too oft repeated intellectual culture of the 21st century, to run into this type of problem and then to pass it off as postmodernism, then to et cetera, that we need to, yeah, this is more, there's something more perplexing here that's not really coming to the forefront. And again, I think, yes, I think this is the way to move forward, is to stop the current debates and instead ask, is it cogent to question clarity on the basis that anthropology has made the discovery that as it were, I think one of the California anthropologists put it, that other people exist, sort of. And then I just give the funny example of that from the point of view of anthropology, is that in the 1980s there was a department store that had Santa Claus crucified to the cross displayed prominently, and the point is, of course, to the Japanese, these are just the mythology of the Americans or something. It's not, they don't really understand what it's about anyway. So it didn't. The notion that this should be understood as a blasphemy would never come in. It's just they're playing around with the symbols of the holiday, and they couldn't think of it in the way a Jesuit would think of it, or in the way, let's put it this way, to be more sort of more fair in a way. In the way in Black Narcissus, you see Sister Clodagh wagging her finger at the young prince, who is this Hindu prince, who's using the name Jesus Christ very loosely, and she said, "Oh, we don't usually use his name so loosely like that."